Uh, hmm.
All right, we are live.
Well, it was weird. I just started today at this new research facility, Black Mesa, and in the welcome package it came with a crowbar. I'm not quite sure why this research facility needs a crowbar. I'm mostly just dealing with like alien technology, but what could go wrong?
Well, that's when you need a crowbar.
I guess, yeah.
Exactly.
I just my job, supposedly according to my sheet, is that there's this crystal that like sits on a cart. And all I need to do is just kind of like push the cart with my body into these laser beams.
It sounds like a dream job. Sounds pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
I know, yeah, right. Like I don't even have to put the crystal on the cart; it's already in there. Yeah, like I literally, and I don't even have to like aim it because it's kind of like a funnel. So I just like kind of walk towards it. I don't know how much I get paid, but
Crowbar's pretty useful. I mean, it's like the Hitchhiker's Guide in the Galaxy, right? They always had a blanket or a towel, I should say. Here you have a crowbar. You can do lots of things with it.
right? Yeah. No, so I mean, maybe I'll get other weapons later, but
It's good
Crowbar's
for
all you
opening
need.
Amazon packages. All sorts of things.
actually, we had for some reason. Don't ask me why. In our equipment room, we have two crowbars. One's red and one's black. I don't know why the video team needs two crowbars,
Well,
but
they were ready for it. They were prepared.
yeah, they're prepared.
And I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be at a bathhouse right now.
Yeah.
In a world where it's just a bunch of there's like big babies, there's dragons and everything like that. And I'm supposed to also be feasting on a buffet at the moment too. But hey, I'm here at work right now.
Wait, I'm waiting for coins.
Oh yeah,
Here,
yeah.
yeah.
Any coins?
Yeah.
I got you.
Good. And then Brad, what are you gonna try the accent?
No.
Dang it. I was hoping we could get to see a little bit of Scottish accent.
Oh no.
my
I'm
stepdad.
thinking about it, and I can't even try.
My stepdad's Scottish, so I had a pretty good accent going for a little bit, but yeah.
Do it. You
I've
do
lost
it. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Actually, and it's funny because my last name's Murray, and supposedly when we migrated over here, it used to be O'Murray, and they dropped the O, but I actually don't know if I'm Irish or Scottish or maybe a mixture of either.
Oh, Murray.
Not quite sure.
Everything.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll take those genealogical tests. I don't know. Anyway, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to this spooky edition of The Full Nerd. Yeah, we're going to talk about some spooky topics, and hopefully not get eaten by a head crab. Actually, man, I always wanted one of those plushy head crabs, so bad. That was like a Think Geek thing, wasn't it? Back when Think Geek was like okay.
Rip.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, never had one. And then we do have some Halloween treats. If just so happens somebody stops by and asks trick or treat, we got some candy.
Yeah.
This was supplied by Mr. No Face over here.
Yes.
I guess this is the good stuff. The white rabbit candy.
The white rabbit candy, the classics, and then you got also a lot of favorites. Hi Chew.
Hi chew, bye chew.
Hi Chew, bye Chew.
Anyway, yeah. Fun times. Welcome everybody. Hopefully you're having a good Halloween. I was bummed coming into the city. I didn't see as many people dressed up as I was hoping here in the city.
I think everyone was already partied out on the weekend.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. I'm more tired coming into the week after this weekend than I was going into it.
Nice. Well, I see you people over on Discord putting in some good questions already. We'll get to the Q&A later, but we got to get this the show started. Let me bring up my notes. Everything running okay?
Everything's good. We got all the friends in the house right now in the
Friends
chat.
of the show.
David, Phoenix, Eskimoster, hello. CR Pole, Prince of Florence. Yes, White Rabbit. Don't forget to eat the wrappers are edible. Don't forget. They are basically just rice paper. They're not plastic.
Ooh.
Just
Wait,
just
does White Rabbit also come in a little box?
box? Not necessarily.
Because I remember a little candy in a little box, and yeah, you can eat the wrapper. I don't know if it's the same thing, but
You can try it later. Yeah.
You're
do
thinking
a
of
taste test.
bananas.
Dang it. Yeah, sometimes I eat the wrapper on those.
On
Sometimes
bananas.
I don't. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Let's let's get it. Let's get it going.
Let's
you
get it
you
going.
good? You good?
Yeah, I'm
you
good.
good? We
I'm
all
good.
good? We all good? All right. Keep the energy up. Oh.
Yeah. Scaring people.
Yeah. I'll just hold this for the intro. I don't know why. Who knows? All right. We ready?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about the upcoming CPU laptop wars. No, laptop CPU wars, not CPU laptop. Who wrote this? In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about the upcoming laptop CPU wars. And what else? Oh, yes. Okay. Jeez. Wow. Okay. Here we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about the upcoming laptop CPU wars and getting angry at game devs. Welcome, everybody, to this spooky edition of The Full Nerd, episode 277. I feel like we've done an episode before on Halloween, right? No? Well, if
We
you're...
must have. It's been 5 or 6 years.
God, I feel, yeah, and I don't remember what I dressed up last time, but this time, for the audio listeners who can't see, I'm dressed up as Gordon. Not our Gordon, but a Gordon Freeman. I just started at this new research facility. They handed me a crowbar and asked me to push a crystal that's in a cart into a laser beam. So I'll do that later. I'll do that after the show. This is like the orientation. Anyway, I am your host, your fill-in host for this episode, Adam Patrick Murray. On the line, we have spooky Bradley Charkis.
I live in a swamp. I put up signs. I'm a terrifying ogre. What do I got to do to get some quiet around here?
Ooh, and also on the line we have joined Mark Hawkman, spooky Mark Hawkman.
Hey, I'm a Halloween hater.
Oh man, that's the spookiest thing we're gonna hear today. In controlling the spookiest verticals and horizontals is Willis Lai.
Hello, everyone. I shouldn't be talking because NoFX really doesn't talk.
Oh.
Hey, I'm out of character. Yeah, he
Actually, well,
yeah,
both of our
ventriloquism.
characters actually shouldn't be talking. This, you know what, Brad, Mark, just go for it. Do the whole episode.
Yeah. But yes, hello, internet. Hello.
Trick or treat. Well, we've got a good episode here today. Okay, I don't need this low, quiet, spooky voice the whole time. So I'm just gonna return to normal, Adam. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We got a fun show today. First couple quick hits. I can't promise anything, but I do want to tell you right now we have in the works another episode with Gordon coming up. So stay tuned to that on your audio and video feeds. Catch up with him.
I personally can't wait as a fan.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to catch up with him. So hopefully you'll hear from Gordon soon. And then another quick hit. I don't know. I'm calling this segment, but something that I'm going to be looking at soon is that Corsair sent over their new gaming creator desk, the Platform 6. And I'm gonna start filming it hopefully this week. I need to set it up and kind of do some stuff, but don't look for the full video out for a little bit because I do actually want to like test it out and kind of see how it holds up rather than just give like a quick impression kind of thing. So, but I'm excited about that. I've seen plenty of gaming desks. I know this is not like they don't advertise as like a gaming desk, but I like
What makes a gaming desk?
RGB. Yeah.
There's RGB in it? Nice.
Oh, no. So this one doesn't have RGB. Actually, the thing that I like about that, this is more geared for like content creators. So it has a really deep base and then like a bar across the back that it comes with monitor arms. But then also like you can attach cameras and lights and stuff to it. So it's they have a version where they do like a pegboard that you can attach stuff to as well. But I did not spring for that one. Corsair sent it to me, by the way. So, but it is not a sponsored thing. So I'm excited to check it out, though. I have this rinkety little desk that I got during the pandemic, and I was like, oh, I don't need it for that long. And then now I'm years later, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should look at a better desk. Anyway, we got some information around laptop CPUs things are heating up. It's weird. Like, we knew about Meteor Lake obviously for a little bit, but all of a sudden it just feels like there was this tidal wave of laptop CPU news. And riding that wave out in front on a boogie board was Mark Hawkman. You were over in Hawaii. Did you do any surfing?
No, in fact, there weren't. I mean, so Qualcomm held its thing in Maui, and just for whatever reason, Maui doesn't seem to have a whole lot of waves. I mean, it's great for snorkeling.
Oh.
It might just be the islands offshore. Like my knowledge of Hawaiian geography is actually kind of poor where Maui is concerned. I think it's Lanai that might be off right off the shore. Anyways, there was no waves. There was I think some people jumped in the pools. I was just kind of like, kind of stuck in my room working, but I didn't even use all my Mai Tai coupons. I mean, the hotel gave us to them, and I was just like, I had a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was about it. So
nice. Well,
I'm pretty.
Well, the big news out of it was them making a push for laptops, but they've been in laptops before. I mean, I remember we did a video. I think it was my first Computex 2019. We did a video.
That's it.
And yeah, but then there was some testing around that. I mean, how did you feel about that first iteration? And I can't remember what was the chip.
It was called the 8CX, and they even went back. They even went back before that to the 850 and so forth. There was the 8CX that we were probably filming in Computex.
That's what it was. Yeah,
which used the Cryo CPU, and this one is an entirely new CPU.
Oh, okay. Well, but they're repromising a new push. And they're showing off some impressive numbers. You actually got to test something, so
yeah. So historically, Windows on ARM has been exclusively limited to Snapdragon, and they, depending on who you'll talk to, they kind of will say, hey, there's an exclusivity agreement through the end of 2024, and that's not like official. They won't. I mean, I've asked, we've asked people on the record. They just, you don't get that information. But supposedly it's a 2024 thing, and supposedly near the end of 2024. Anyways, that's kind of leads into some of the other competitors we'll be talking about in a second. But for right now, Qualcomm bought a company called Nuvia a couple of years back, and Nuvia was supposed to be this super powerful, well, not super powerful, but just a really sort of a turbocharged ARM chip. And interestingly enough, it was co-founded by a guy named Gerald Williams, and Gerald Williams' claim to fame before that was working at Apple, where he designed the M1 chip. So what we're seeing right now is competing against the M1, or I should say eventually the M3. It's kind of like Williams competing against himself, which is kind of a little fun sidelight. But anyways, this is the Nuvia architecture for a CPU they call Orion, and a platform they call Snapdragon X, and a chip they call the Snapdragon X Elite. It's kind of a little bit confusing, but yes. So this was the sort of the big unveiling of the Snapdragon X Elite, and full disclosure, they flew us over to Maui to their Snapdragon Technology Summit. So we didn't want to do it. I mean, I didn't want to do it, but yes, we accepted hotel, airfare, room and board, and so forth. So have to make that clear. But they had a couple of days of this thing on Maui, where the first day they made some really bold claims about what this thing could do. They were talking about it being essentially double the performance of a 13th gen core chip, specifically 10 and 12 core chips, 1360p, I believe it was. And even taken on a Core i9 13th gen. So we were, the thing is that when you hear those claims, you kind of like, hey, are these real? When we were in Computex before, when they were on the Cryo CPU, they made some claims about how it compared to a Kaby Lake R chip, for example, and how it would just trounce it. And in reality, they kind of lived up to their claims, but they kind of really undersold what Intel could do. And Intel turned out that they could just kind of destroyed them. And everyone's kind of knows the story of Windows on ARM right now. It's kind of performance lags. There's compatibility. And all those things, were kind of in the background going into this thing. So they kind of had a story, not only just to tell, but also to prove. And so I think that is sort of the underlying message with what I went over there. And I kind of think they did. So the The X Elite is a single chip. They're not giving a family of chips. It's not like they're having U cores and P cores and H cores and so forth. It's a single chip. It's 3 clusters of 4 cores apiece. These are ARM V8 cores. They all run at 3.8 gigahertz. And except they have sort of a turbo option where they have 2 cores in those first 2 clusters that can go up to 4.3 gigahertz. And there's not, at least for right now, what they're doing is they're not differentiating their clock speed. They're simply saying, which is kind of a feature of ARM chips, that they can scale up or down depending upon the TDP. So they were showing reference designs up to 80 watts, but they also had a 23 watt and a 12 watt and a 23 watt system. That 45 watt system could go up to 80 if it needed to. So,
But
Yeah, the past ARM iterations for PCs didn't go anywhere near 80 watts, right?
not really, no. They were all geared really towards long battery life. And the message here was that it still delivers long battery life. In fact, they're still talking about multi-day battery life, which, kind of depends on how you use it, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, these are all geared at performance. In fact, if you want to look at the traditional ARM architecture, which is both, performance cores and efficiency cores, which of course Intel has adopted now. These are all performance cores. They said that
was gonna be my
our
question.
performance cores. Yeah, they said that our performance cores are more power efficient than competing efficiency cores. So there was no need to go down that route. So I know that's interesting, right? Because everyone was kind of wondering why no efficiency cores.
I mean, because they were kind of the first ones to have that.
Right.
That
Big
big
little.
little, right? Yeah, big little is what they had called it. So now they're like, nope, just big. That's all we need. But
Just big, yeah.
like across all of the SKUs, or do you think they'll have like maybe another SKU that has like a big little configuration? Or
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Interesting.
So they talked. That was one of the things that, I talked to some of the people there, and in fact, we're kind of hoping to do a big Q&A, and they were sticking really to the party line. They weren't really saying anything about how they're going up and down the stack, what their future might hold. So it was more. It was. They were helpful. They were just, they would talk. They wouldn't go anything beyond that was really publicly disclosed. So it wasn't really, in my mind, something that needed to be sort of just broken out to a particular story. But yes, I mean, they're talking about performance cores, and we can assume in the future maybe they'll clock those up a little bit. I asked them about Chromebooks. They wouldn't say anything about Chromebooks. One analyst suggested they could just chop off a cluster to give you a sort of an 8-core part, which would make sense. So that would be probably a direction they could go into. But right now, it's mainstream notebooks they're looking at, not gaming notebooks. They did show some games, but it's performance.
Okay.
It's performance.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because I mean, you did say they were comparing it to like Core i9 in certain aspects, but they're also not saying like, oh, hey, these are going to be like the in huge thick gaming laptops or like content creation laptops. This is still more like thin and light, kind of mainstream.
In fact, they ruled out content creation, which is sort of that low end discrete GPU. They did not rule out marrying it with a discrete GPU. I mean, that was a question that came up, and they didn't say anything about not doing that. But yeah, these are like, they said basically commercial, consumer, prosumer. So, a little bit more powerful, but not content creation, not gaming. They did show things like Baldur's Gate, for example. Baldur's Gate 3, for example. They showed Warframe, showed a couple of other games, but
on the IGP?
On the IGP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
now, I don't know.
Yeah, what was the
resolution,
performance? Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the medley of stuff where they said they could run it, but I don't know performance. I don't know resolution, image quality. Let me just talk a little bit more about what else we've got. The Adreno. So this is the Orion CPU. The Adreno GPU stays. They didn't really talk about that much. 4.6 teraflops, ray tracing. They can drive 4K displays, upgradable software drivers, which, I was talking with a couple of people there. They're like, I think they were talking about, I think they done that before, but no, they had like one SKU that had one driver upgrade. So, they weren't too impressed by that. You've still got 5G, which is their bread and butter. USB 4. Again, this is not, Intel, so it's not Thunderbolt.
Yeah, that's going to be
pretty
another
much
question.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But the one thing they did allow us to do, though, is, they didn't allow us to actually handle the notebooks. They did have some reference designs, like I said. They didn't allow us to handle the notebooks, but they did allow us to supervise benchmarks, and we go through them on the site. And these were, this was, a fairly legit suite of benchmarks. I mean, we had Geekbench, we had Cinebench 2024. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, when you say supervised benchmarks, does that mean they picked the benchmarks and they like actually physically ran them, or did you get to pick the benchmarks out of a list? And
Yeah, good question. So they had about a dozen, I guess it was maybe 24 notebooks there. They had each station, and each station had a benchmark on it, and then they had a guy there that would push the button, and you were there to try to determine if there was any hanky-panky going on, which I don't think there was. But and they even had like a list of suggested scores that these things were supposed to hit, which they did. So it's not like we got to run the benchmarks, but it's not like they just gave us numbers either. So it's a decent compromise. The fair, 24 notebooks. I mean, that means they have silicon back from the fab. These notebooks are supposed to launch mid 2024. So that's a positive sign there. But yeah, so there were really two things that sold it. One is that, yes, I mean, these benchmarks, Geekbench, Cinebench, 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme, which isn't the one you necessarily pick, but that's fine. ProScion, the AI stuff. These were all, lived up to their tests. And I didn't go over there with notebooks to test except for one, but I took what they did, came back, looked at the notebooks that I had lying around here in this office, did some testing against, 13th gen core stuff. And yeah, I mean, it seems to live up to its promises.
Did they have anything to put it against there? Like, did they have?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. They had suggested scores for like a couple of models, some of the Ryzen stuff, and M2, I think it was. Maybe it was an M1.
Mm-hmm.
High-end 13th gen, I think it was Core i9. So they had suggested scores, but that was just, again, in their numbers.
And were these reference design laptops, or were there actual, like, were these Samsung laptops, or like?
No, these are reference design, unbranded.
Design. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the other thing that was interesting about what they showed there was that was the partners. Traditionally, we've had, Lenovo, we've had HP, Microsoft Surface, the most recently with the Surface Pro 9 5G. I mean, these are partners they've had, but there were more partners there than I can recall ever being lined up for an ARM chip. I mean, there was not only those three, but there was Acer, there was Asus, there was Dell. Xiaomi was there. Honor, which is a Chinese phone manufacturer, is going to get into the laptop market and use this chip too. So, OEMs see more than we do. And so if these guys are signing on, I mean, that was the other shoe for me. What they're showing us seems legitimate. What they're showing the partners seems legitimate. So again, as Gordon pointed out, these benchmarks are optimized for ARM. They will run natively on ARM, and that has always been, one of the problems with these things. PCMark, they ran PCMark apps, which is Word and PowerPoint and Outlook running on top of these things, and that's the traditional ARM benchmark. They didn't run PCMark 10, the generic benchmark, because it compiles a lot of different applications, and not all of those run on ARM. So you're still going to see probably it's going to run most of what you want, but maybe not everything. It's really going to be in Microsoft's camp to make sure that, again, this is running what people want it to run. And that's going to be sort of the test as these things roll out to market.
Well, and because
that was my big question looking at this, because I agree with everything you said. Like, seeing all the vendors line up out of the box, like, we've never seen that for any of these Windows on ARM endeavors. And I found the fact that they are confident enough to claim, at least, that it can run things like Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff. I find that encouraging as well. But in everything that you've shown, like, has excellent single thread performance, has all kinds of other stuff. It looks great. I'm hesitant because of that history of compatibility issues and because of Qualcomm's own history of benchmark squirreliness in the past when it was announcing stuff. But I'm very intrigued. This could be a real, like, kick up the beehive kind of thing for the laptop market, and I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, we're also seeing an intersection too. So Qualcomm's pushing performance, Intel's backing off and pushing battery life. I mean, maybe there's an intersection there. I'm not sure. So that's going to be, it's going 2024 is going to be a really interesting year.
Well, when you say a lot of this compatibility stuff lays at the feet of Microsoft, was Microsoft there, like as a partner talking about this stuff?
They were there, yes. They were there. They had a Microsoft person on stage. Did they? I don't recall them specifically just beating that horse of, hey, we're going to have 99% applications that you want to run available on this. I mean, that was just not part of their message. It was more along the lines of, hey, Windows on ARM. Windows is Microsoft's message has been kind of like Windows equals chip diversity. So you got x86, you've got ARM. That I think will hopefully be a message they start putting out next year. But right now, I don't remember too much movement in that space other than just, I think they kind of want to wave their hands and make that go away. I mean, they're trying to push those other aspects right now. But yeah, compatibility is the key.
Well, we have a Wild Gordon Mong in the chat. Hi,
Nice.
Gordon.
Hey, Gordon.
He has a question. Mark, any insight into why Microsoft is pushing so hard with ARM?
Two things. So first of all, again, is the diversity standpoint. They want to go ahead and sort of differentiate themselves from Apple, because Apple, of course, is confined to a single chip at this point. They're not going back and forth to Intel. And second, I think they are. I think a part of it has to do with AI. Qualcomm has traditionally been in the AI space, at least on the mobile side of things. And that's a whole nother can of worms with AI, because Qualcomm and Intel are pushing local AI, AI that runs on your PC and doesn't need to necessarily talk to the cloud. It can be hybrid, but it's dependent upon your PC. The interesting thing here, and one of the things that we talked about sort of, like at dinner, for example, but not necessarily with Qualcomm, is the fact that, honestly, I'm a little bit questioning whether Microsoft wants local AI, because if you look at Copilot on the PC, for example, right now, the upcoming in the Windows 11's by the way, Windows 11 is rolling out. The 2023 update is as of today. And one of those things is Copilot, and Copilot is essentially just a window to the cloud where you're asking Bing Chat stuff, and it does some stuff locally, like change into dark mode and so forth. But once you've got your data on Microsoft's cloud, that comes with a subscription, right? With Microsoft 365, and Microsoft loves subscriptions, and Microsoft really wants you to pay that money every month or every year. And so if you start looking at like AI locally, then you start to wonder, well, why do I necessarily need to do that? Why can't I use Llama or the Meta's Llama and so forth? So I am thinking that Microsoft wants Qualcomm because of AI. I'm just not sure the scenario is going to play out exactly as they hope.
Interesting. Yeah, we did talk a lot about that with Meteor Lake, how it was kind of that funny messaging where Intel's like, oh yeah, we're going to have all these all these chips with AI built into it, and then Microsoft's like, oh wow, yeah, check out all the power of the AI we have in the cloud.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to start to
they'll
see
make a local AI pro feature. There you go.
Yeah, well, it could be, and it also could be. I think one of the things that they did talk about a little bit to me was they wanted to see it as a just a feature of like Photoshop, for example, things that you do better,
acceleration
on the apps, with local acceleration. No, so if you can sell that, then that's great.
So you said the chips aren't coming out, or the laptops that have these chips aren't coming out till mid next year, correct?
Yeah, that's the time frame. They haven't. No one has said anything about showing them off at CES, but I would expect that would be one place that you'd see them alongside again, sort of this Meteor Lake debut too.
Well, what other questions do you have that you hope are answered? Sometime in between now and the launch. What's left for you?
compatibility, whether there's any sort of scaling up or down. I would, one of the things that AMD and Intel have taught people is that there are various SKUs and various chips and various clock speeds. The whole scaling up and down with TDP is still a little bit fuzzy, I think, in people's minds, even my own. So, we're going to have to sort of educate the consumer on just how performance might scale with a thicker laptop. We all kind of know that, but again, there's usually a chip to go along with it. There's the whole local AI, there's compatibility. There's a number of questions that Qualcomm and Windows on ARM still need to answer, but the biggest thing for them is to seed us with notebooks to allow us to run them. If I was actually Qualcomm, I would say, look, I'm going to look at the benchmarks that PC World is running. I'm going to make sure every damn one of them runs on ARM and natively. That would be what I would do, because otherwise we get taken out of our review process and we have to say, crap, compatibility is still an issue. Whereas it's a lot easier to get past that if everything that you want to run on it already runs. So I think if they do that, then people will be happier. Otherwise, there's still going to be some negative sentiment.
I know graphics vendors do that. Look at that Intel APO thing that just came out. Like the first 2 games it supports are Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition and Rainbow Six Siege, which are 2 common benchmarking games.
Yeah, right.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is that Procyon, which is, there's not too many AI benchmarks out there. The interesting thing is that Procyon runs on various APIs. There's one for Intel OpenVINO. There's one for Qualcomm Snappy. There's one for NVIDIA TensorRT, and those are all essentially optimized, but you want to run them on the optimized platform. What I found was that TensorRT, when you run it on like a 40, what was it on my Surface Laptop Studio 2? I think it's like 4050, maybe it's a 4060. You get right in that ballpark of Qualcomm integrated AI. So I think what we're going to see from Intel and AMD is that good GPUs equal good NPUs, especially with the messaging that you can run with CPU and GPU and NPU together. So I think that's going to be the message that they bring to say, hey, look, Qualcomm's not all that. You still got a good GPU for gaming when you buy our systems. So.
Okay, well, if there's anything good about this that might push Microsoft forward and the legacy support stuff, is that it's not just Qualcomm that's getting into this ARM game heavily. We got some news about AMD and NVIDIA both pursuing this as well.
Yeah,
I haven't really followed this. What is that about?
Well, again, it gets into that exclusivity thing. Supposedly, once that expires, you've got AMD and NVIDIA like looking at chips, ARM PC, chips for ARM PCs. Again, there's a lot of little, sort of back talk, not want to say what's the word I'm looking for, back channel talk, I guess, back down, there, people talking over dinner and so forth. I think the consensus that people have come up with, and this is just not my opinion but just what people I talk to, is that the AMD thing is probably not true, only because they've done ARM before initiatives in the server space, but they seem relatively invested in x86 for the mobile space. They could do it, and not ruling it out, but it just seemed unlikely. NVIDIA, NVIDIA seemed a little bit more likely because
they wanted ARM, right?
They wanted ARM. People are like, well, they have $50 trillion to spend. Jensen's the kind of guy that might just want to do that, even though the margins on the x86 PCs are nothing like GPUs. You can get much more profit on a GPU than again for a CPU. But it was more along the lines of Jensen does what Jensen wants, and it might happen. So
they tried back in the day, and Intel shut them down. They tried getting into CPUs back in the day until shut them down. So and they already have Grace Hopper too. So they're working on CPUs. So
yeah, they are.
Interesting.
It would be interesting. Yeah, it would be fun and interesting. But
and once again, if anything, the more players that get into this space, the more Microsoft needs to make sure it pushes their end as well, right? So
yeah, and it plays into that whole diversity argument. So maybe it is true. I don't know. Yeah,
well, we got a couple good questions. Friend of the show, Davina, asks, is Samsung's Exynos range still a viable competitor to Snapdragon, in your opinion?
As far as I know, nothing's been sort of geared towards the PC space. Exynos has always been sort of a chip that's been sort of geared outside the U.S. I mean, my
Mhm.
understanding is that it's been, they sort of looked at it for Korea, and then I think they've actually phased it out as far as it's that the phones are concerned. I don't
Yeah,
think there is
yeah.
an Exynos chip anymore.
Mm.
Good question, but I would say it's probably a long shot.
Mm.
So
Okay. And then one Gordon.
Yeah,
Mon.
they never even put Exynos in their flagship Samsung phones here in the US. They
Yeah.
use Qualcomm all the way.
right.
And then Gordon has a question that somebody else had earlier as well. Did they talk anything about having these Qualcomm chips in handheld game devices? Obviously, the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally, that kind of.
Great question. Probably one we should have asked, but no mention of that to my knowledge at all.
Mm.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's a good point.
I mean, but they were showing at least gaming, so it could potentially be viable.
Yeah, I mean, there was no demo room that we got to walk in and play these things. It was just this little montage of various games, and I was just, trying to take notes as quickly as I could. So those are the ones I remember. But nothing too, intensive, graphics intensive. Just more along the lines. If there was a first-person game, it was from a few years ago, or some of those third-person games, like again, Baldur's Gate 3 was probably the one that stood out for me. So
yeah.
Can you imagine like a Steam Deck style device running ARM chip? You'd have to run the compatibility layer to get the games running, then the other compatibility layer to get it running on Linux, and it just that's a lot of detours.
And one of the things I should say is that they ran benchmarks on Linux there, and Linux actually performed a lot better than Windows. So they did run, one of the things they showed during their presentation was that one against the Core i9, and that was Geekbench running on top of Linux. So yeah.
Okay. Gordon also adds, my guess is the lack of HX parts is AMD has always had a harder time penetrating mobile. So, maybe that's where Qualcomm sees their in is more thinner, lighter laptops rather than the power hungry.
Could be. I mean, I was thinking of AMD as like a higher performance in CPU, but lesser battery life. So,
Okay. Well, we have a couple more things to go on here. Anything else about the Qualcomm stuff we didn't cover that you wanted to?
No, I kind of felt like I beat it to
it
to death anyway.
Well,
no, that was good. That was good.
Yeah, no. Speaking of beating stuff to death, have you heard of this thing called the M3? It was weird. They came out with the M1 and then the M2. I was wondering what they were going to call the next one, but they just call it M3. It's so easy. It just writes itself.
Yeah, right.
So you stayed up because they had their event late last night for us on the West Coast. I don't really watch these events anymore, but you did watch the event. Tell us about the M3 and all the greatness that it's going to bring.
I know. So first of all, they had the very spooky theme. I was not sure exactly why they did it at night and why they did it with the whole spooky theme, but they did. They even had little fog effects and everything.
It's scary fast.
Exactly. Tim Cook was out there, not dressed up. So there we go.
Lame.
Just like Tim Cook. So yeah, the M3. So the M3 is going to be the what's going to power the new MacBook Pro. I think there actually had been some talk about doing this going into desktops too, but that really didn't materialize too much. Although they have the all-in-one that they're talking about. So the M3, again, ARM. This is a 3 nanometer process. Actually, Qualcomm I didn't mention before was 4 nanometer. It's and I'm going to leverage a little bit from Macworld, just because they kind of compile it together, and I'm lazy. So
I mean, it's what they do. It's literally in the name
It's what they
Macworld.
do.
So
A17 Pro architecture. The CPU cores are 15% faster than the M2, 30% faster than the M1. Efficiency cores are 30% faster than the M2, 50% faster than the M1. That's sort of the architecture. There are 3 chips. There is the M3, the M3 Pro, and the M3 Max. Of course, speculation is that there's an M3 Ultra sort of waiting out there in the wings. The M3 is 8 CPU cores, 4 P cores, 4 E cores, 10 core GPU.
has that changed from the M2, or is it the same?
No,
count?
that one I think is the same.
Okay.
But the M3 Pro has changed. We're looking there at 12 CPU cores, 6 P cores, 6 E cores. The M2 Pro had 8 P cores and 4 E cores, so they're evening it out a little bit more. 18 GPU cores, which is 1 less than the M2 Pro. But it is also supposedly 10% faster than the M2, 40% faster than the GPU in the M1.
If you take the specs apart, it's looking like the Pro also has a smaller memory bus, goes from 256 to 192.
Right. Yeah. Somebody mentioned that. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't note that down, but you're right. It does look like a smaller memory bus. The difference between the M1 and the M3, the M3 and the M3 Pro is the M3, the base M3 supports one external display. The M3 Max and the Pro both support 2 to 4 displays, which I guess if you're a content creator matters. So I talked about the M3 Pro. The M3 Max is the big one. It has 16 CPU cores, 12 P cores, 4 E cores, 40 GPU cores, which is 2 more than the M2 Max. I didn't actually note the number of transistors, but there's like, I don't know.
26 billion.
Lot.
Yeah, 25 billion in the M3 at least.
I was close.
Yeah,
Okay.
5 billion more
That's
than the
funny.
M2. So I think the Max gets up to 92 billion, which I didn't actually do the math on like comparing it to Titanium, but I mean, that is a lot of
I mean,
transistors.
they love throwing around big numbers like that. Probably the scariest news, I don't know if he's trolling us here, but the scariest news in the chat is Gordon says he's watching this stream on an M1 MacBook. That's scary,
That
Gordon.
is scary.
You chilled me to my bones, if that's true.
His meds are making him loopy.
Well,
The interesting-
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the one interesting thing that I remember from noting there was that, and I think somebody else mentioned this as well, is that it does AV1 decoding but not encoding, which I thought was a really odd omission. But there you go.
Hasn't it always been like that?
It could be.
No,
Yeah,
that's
they're really
new. That's
leaning
new.
more
That's
to
new.
ProRes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Interesting.
is. I could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
The bigger jump is the GPU more than the CPU.
Uh-huh.
Not only does it have the AV1 decoding, which is new, sadly it doesn't have AV1 encoding because that's largely where the PC has moved.
Yeah.
And you would think content creators would like that, but
Did I misspeak? Yeah, no encoding but decoding. Yeah, right.
Yeah. But it also has support for ray tracing and mesh shaders. So 5 years after the RTX 20 series, Apple's got up.
Sweet. I mean, for all those games you want to play on your MacBook.
It's actually really impressive in laptops. I think
Yeah.
Intel's the only other one that's shipping DirectX 12 fully compatible, but I'm not sure
Okay.
with iGPU.
Huh. So
Yeah.
and yeah, they announced new MacBook Pros that these are going into, and then iMacs, and some new colorways.
$15.99 to $31.99 for the 14-inch, and $24.99 to $39.99 for the 16-inch. So, yeah,
Well, I mean,
lots of money.
I'm a professional, so I'm going to assume that they want the M3 Pro to be something I would look at. Because Pro is short for professional, so I think that's
That's right.
the one I would look at.
Well,
no.
Yep. And of course, there's a new color too, which is the professional model.
Oh, the black. Yeah, I heard.
Space black.
Well,
Just
but
black. Space black.
Yeah, well, I heard Apple invented a black laptop. Like they were the
And more
first
black.
ones to make a black laptop. Like that's pretty impressive. Good for them. Good
Yep.
job, Mr. Cook. I applaud you for the big change.
You could have named it Scary Black if they're doing Scary Fast.
I guess, yeah. Well, so now they just need to get to RGB. That's all I need, and then all of a sudden
Right.
I'll be a MacBook user.
I was actually hoping for a space orange, actually, for it to come out,
Actually, orange would be kind of cool. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, so one of the things I did see around, and I don't know if you noticed this, but a lot of I guess supposedly from what I've heard, a lot of their charts were comparing it to the M1, not the M2.
Right.
So it made things look more.
Well,
better
I mean,
that
we've
way.
seen that with Intel, right?
Yeah,
So
okay.
you always compared, like, it's the PC that you bought 5 years ago, and look how great it is now. I mean, so that's just kind of tried and true, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just Intel, it's everybody. When NVIDIA rolled out the 40 series, they compared to the 20 series, etc.
Got it.
That being said, I did find the timing of this interesting. The fact that it was 8 o'clock at night on the East Coast, 5 o'clock on the West Coast.
Mhm.
They've never done that before, at least not in the 10 or so years or 15 or so years that I've been, I'm old, covering these kinds of things. And it kind of feels to me like the CPU side of things is kind of hitting that, mid-era Intel kind of years, where now it's like, hey, the M3, it's 15% faster.
I mean, it's what
So
you expect,
fortunately, they had
right?
the GPU
Yeah.
to hang its head on. Yeah, but they made such big leaps with the M1, and then the M2 was a big leap over the M1. This is the first where it feels like, we're starting to hit the iterative leaps.
I
Interesting.
agree with that. Yeah, I'm not sure of the timing either. Originally the suggestion was that they were trying to rope in the Asian audience, which would make sense, but there was nothing explicitly geared towards Asia in that I saw. So
But it's just kind of meh to me. I wonder if they're doing it at night to be like, it's not in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, yeah. The last piece of laptop CPU news here to talk about is that there's been some Meteor Lake leaks. Well, I guess this first one isn't a leak, but there's been a couple Meteor Lake laptops that have been listed. Lenovo Yoga models specifically. I'm reading over at WCCF Tech. They kind of noted some online retailers posting some Lenovo Yoga models with Meteor Lake chips in them, a Core Ultra 5 and a Core Ultra 7. But then the leak that happened the next day that WCCF Tech is what I'm reading, reporting on, is Geekbench numbers showing 5.1 gigahertz CPU performance. Is that and then they are actually showing the actual scores, and let's see, the single core score kind of falls in line with let me find, they've got a big list here, the 13900 HK, so the one of the top end, and then the multi-core score lines up with about a 12950 HX. So I mean, what do you think? Is that impressive, or do you think it's just like, okay? It is Geekbench 5, so it's an older version. Not quite sure why, but
right.
Mark, what was your take?
I'm kind of leaning towards the okay at this point in time. I mean, we really just have to see how everything plays out. I mean, there's a lot of chips being dumped into that bucket that's going to land in our lap on in 2024 with we still got to see if and when AMD's got anything planned. We have to. They're having an event, in December, which I don't think is under embargo or NDA. We have Meteor Lake, we have the Qualcomm stuff. I'm hearing it. I'm enthused, I guess, a little bit for the fact that when Meteor Lake came out, the fact that it was sort of a tick and not a talk, the performance, the IPC improvements weren't all going to be that hot. Anything that pushes the needle forward as far as performance is concerned certainly satisfies that part of me that wants to see, wants to try out 14th gen gaming laptops and stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, you always have to take these things with some a little bit of salt, because you're not sure if it's true or not. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting, but not really jaw dropping. So,
Brad, anything you think we can glean from this?
Most of the Meteor Lake stuff we've seen so far have been like mid-range focused, right? So I think if it can hit the same IPC and multi-thread scores as the higher end gaming SKUs from this current generation, that's cool. That's good.
I will say, I'll clarify real quick. I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier. The Geekbench scores that I listed were from a Core Ultra 9 185H. So if so it is theoretically. I mean, the Ultra 9. So I'm going to assume it's the highest end that they're going to have. I don't really know the numbering. What one is going to be Series 1, and then 85H is going to denote. I don't know. It kind of lines up with what
Core Ultra 5, 7, and 9 in place of Core i7, i5, i7, and 9.
Yeah. So still confusing on that end, but it seems like this chip in the leak is one of the higher end SKUs.
I think it's hard to tell with Geekbench. I'm not a big fan of Geekbench. There's a reason why Geekbench scores are always what leaks, because you can't really drive too much real world stuff from it. But again, between this kind of performance being about the same level as last gen, and the desktop chips, Raptor Lake, being about the same performance as last gen, I'm curious to see how popular these are when they land, and I'm curious to see if AMD is able to leap ahead in the next few months as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's really all I can draw from a Geekbench leak.
Yeah. I mean, so I do think there is an avenue to be very interesting. I mean, obviously we don't know anything, and this is just a small little window into something, but we have talked about the idea of, okay, or at least for me, even if it's the same amount of performance, but if they can really deliver on efficiency like they're talking about, then like, oh, okay, I'm willing to take a relatively stable line in terms of performance because I already feel like these laptops are pretty damn performant. But if you can deliver on the efficiency part of it, and also the new disaggregated architecture, I mean, that's going to probably have its own headaches. But I mean, the efficiency angle, I mean, for big, heavy content creation laptops or gaming laptops, probably not going to be a huge thing. But I still think, in the handheld gaming devices, that's where it's going to be very interesting, and that they could really play against AMD there. Because if they can keep that performance up, but then really tackle that efficiency and have a better GPU integrated GPU in there, then like that's where I get kind of excited.
I will say that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. I will say that one of the things that there's a couple of things that came to mind when you were saying that. One of the things that Acer had sent us and actually I think Matt Smith reviewed it for us, a Swift Edge. I don't know if you can actually see this too well. Anyways, this is a Swift Edge. This is one of the 7000 series. It actually supposedly has AI, but right up there at the top, right near the screen, is a fan grill. And this is an ordinary, just a generic old productivity laptop. And this is one of the first times in recent memory that I've heard a fan really scream. You do with benchmarks and so forth, but this was this is unfortunately one of AMD's I don't want to say weaknesses, but when you trade off that higher CPU power, you're getting additional fan noise with it too. And this was not a soft fan; it was a loud, aggressive fan. And I think the fact that I was a little shocked at that, I guess, is testament to the fact that I've looked at enough laptops recently where the fan noise has been low, the performance has been fairly high. So, AMD might in fact deliver higher performance, but there may be some fan noise goes along with that. And I wouldn't say necessarily on paper that makes a difference, but in real life it kind of does. The interesting thing that I didn't mention before, but one of the things I was doing was actually testing that Swift Edge because it has a chip on it that supposedly has Ryzen AI. And for whatever reason, Windows does not detect the NPU, and AMD's specs say that Ryzen AI is available. I'm not sure if that's like a loophole that means it's not enabled, or I need to just turn on a specific BIOS for it. But I was a little bit intrigued by the fact that we do have AI out, but only the ARM stuff is being detected by at least the Procyon benchmark. So does that mean there's overhead in the future that could come out? I'm not sure. I just thought that was kind of an interesting point that I hadn't noticed earlier. So
interesting. Okay, well, we'll yeah, still lots to come out. I think you had mentioned this as well, but I think we're going to get a lot of information during CES. Kind of dumped. Obviously, the Meteor Lake has a launch of, what was it, December 12th or 15th or 17th? I can't remember the exact date, but I'm sure we'll get a lot more information during CES. Because it's crazy. It just really does feel like all of a sudden, like, oh man, this new laptop CPU battleground is heating up. Well, I guess my last major question is, okay, does any of this translate to the desktop? Did Qualcomm talk about the desktop at all?
Nope. In fact, they specifically mentioned it's going to be laptop. So that was obviously the question that people asked, and they said, nope, we have no plans for desktop at this point. So they didn't rule it out in the future, but right now it's laptops only, and not gaming, just consumer laptops.
Well, do we think there is a place for ARM on the desktop?
Let's just see. I think it's too early to say. Let's see what it does in the laptop space, and then go from there. I guess you could always just tack on additional cores. You could, up the TDP. I don't know. When they're talking about going up and down the stack with TDP, I don't know if there's an actual what the limit is for that. Because you shouldn't be able to take that little chip and run it on 400 watts, and I just don't. I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. What's that?
That's what Intel's doing on the desktop.
Maybe so. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know.
I think Gordon sums it up nice right here. Don't buy your new laptop until 2024. If you're in the market for a laptop, unless you can find a real smoking good deal during Black Friday, in which we do cover deals on the site.
Don't get our Black Friday coverage.
Yeah, no, yeah. But 2024 is I don't know. Though then again, I do feel like a lot of this is so new that I don't know if I would want to be a first gen adopter on a lot of this stuff either.
I wouldn't want to be a first gen adopter, and I suspect that a lot of this is showing up in $1,000 plus laptops.
Okay,
so
never mind. I take it back. Look for really good Black Friday deals on current parts that are out there now. Okay, so let's move over to getting angry. I feel I've got a crowbar. I got a crowbar here in my hands. So I'm ready to get angry. No, I'm just kidding. No. So we brought up this idea to talk about getting angry at game devs, and I know we've talked about it over the past couple months in a lot of places and for a lot of reasons, but there's been two specific scenarios that I think we can talk about, and funny enough, they're both kind of completely different scenarios. The first one is City Skylines. Mark, you said you're a big fan of City Skylines, and you tried out the new one. What's your experience been like for the new one?
Yeah, so first of all, it launched when I was in Hawaii. So I don't know about the status of like hotel broadband, but I was a little concerned that, I was going to get, nicked for like trying to download too many gigabytes over the hotel Wi-Fi. But I did actually just do it because I just wanted to see what it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a couple of hundred, I don't know how many, I don't know how many 100 hours I have in City Skylines 1. And the reason I was pissed off at myself, and not necessarily the developers, but myself, is because they had a humble bundle with all the DLC for City Skylines 1. And it was just like, I should have just grabbed that. It was like $20 and would have gotten me everything, because I've gotten a few, but not all of them. But yeah, City Skylines 2. First of all, my understanding is if you bought it, so first of all, the initial performance, they said that they were disappointed with their initial performance. They were not going to hit their initial performance targets.
The developers,
the developers. And the other thing for me was the fact that they were going to not allow access to the Steam Workshop, which, if anyone knows City Skylines, was the way that people got around the DLC. I mean, not only were there mods that, improved traffic flow, but there were assets like props all over the place. Like, there were some people who played City Skylines that design it to design a functioning city, and they're more interested in how traffic interacts, and they're interested in doing interchanges and complex interchanges and multiple island scenarios and so forth. And that's kind of the way I play. But there are a lot of people who really it was more like a train set. Like, they really wanted to put trees specific places. There were custom assets for like Dunkin' Donuts and KFC, and people were like,
all right, I gotta play this game.
Yeah, creating their own little custom little city, and it's really cool. And it takes up a lot of memory when you do that. I mean, load times get into the minutes, and the fact that when you're looking at just City Skylines 1 and the performance you get hit just on that, and then you get into City Skylines 2 and the performance is slow at launch, and the patches that are being deployed that improve the performance hit Steam first. Now, the reason I'm not on Steam on this one is the fact that you can get it through Game Pass. And so it's a try before you buy type thing, where you can get it on Game Pass, you can download it, you can play it there. And then later, once they fix everything, you can get it on Steam. But the thing is that if you get it on Steam and you don't have access to the Steam Workshop, they're doing it through their own sort of workshop. I don't know. It's kind of it is a mess. I mean, I'm mad at myself. I'm kind of mad at the devs. I'm not too mad at the devs because I haven't paid for it. I mean, I'm not going to pre-order or any of that sort. But it is kind of like, yeah, the Game Pass. But I mean, they did such a wonderful job leading up to it with the developer diaries and explaining how everything was going to work. And then about a couple of weeks before the launch, they dropped the fact that it wasn't going to hit their performance targets. And it was not going to be on the Steam Workshop. And I was just like, we don't necessarily cover, we're not a City Skylines publication, but I was like, well, geez. I mean, that's the gotcha, right? That's the thing that they left out. And this is like, he kind of undermined all of their efforts that they had done beforehand. And I know that the devs are conscientious, and in fact, they have done a nice job on City Skylines 1s and iterating over years to improve it. But it was just like, now I have to wait for at least 6 months to a year before it's in a usable state. So that's why I was like, well, I should have just been playing City Skylines 1. And I should have bought all the DLC and have a happy little time doing that. So I was kind of like, well, yeah. So I was just like,
did they talk? I mean, how did they get here? It sounds like if what you're saying is that the run up to it was all, like seemed all good and just like, oh,
the run up
wow,
was
cool.
great.
Yeah. So
the run up was fantastic.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, we didn't hit our performance targets. I mean, like how do you get to something like that? Does that mean they needed more time and the publisher was like, nah, you got to get it out now? Does that mean like they're willing to just put it out there and then like fix it later? Like,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know as well as I do. I mean, there's always that, I guess that looming presence of the publisher who wants to get a game out on a certain date. I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable about game development as other things, so I'm not sure exactly what went on here. But could they have held the game for 3 more months and worked out some of these bugs and improved the performance? Sure. Would that have meant they missed the holiday? Yes, they would. So, I'm not sure it's necessarily a publisher hanging over their heads, but, if they want to hit those, I have $50 burning a hole in my Steam gift card and I want to go ahead and put something out, buy something on it, they want that game to be one of the things that people buy. So, I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I want to know the ins and outs of. It's just the fact that all I know is that there's a cool game out there. I want to play it. The performance is choppy and not great. And, it's just kind of like, it's like the Christmas, it's like I get to see the Christmas present behind the glass and I don't get to open it. Or I do, and it's just kind of disappointing. So, I don't know.
Well, I'll put this another way. Brad, who should I get mad at? I ask this question all the time, but like who in this scenario, who should I get mad at?
I would just shrug and say that sucks, and then go play another game.
Even if you put your heart,
I'm pretty chill.
I put off Cyberpunk just for this reason. I mean, I still have never played it, so that's what I'm gonna go to.
Same.
Go play Cyberpunk now. It's awesome. I definitely get the frustrations of the two examples we're going to talk about. This is the one that I think I can understand why people are irritated at the developers more so. I think it's good on the developers that they at least put out that warning, like, hey, if performance matters to you, we're not going to hit that. But I'm seeing in the review copies and stuff like that, they actually recommended to reviewers, hey, put all the graphic settings to low, kind of a deal if you want to have stable frame rates.
Ooh.
And I think they just got too ambitious. They're not a huge team. And city builders and games like that are notoriously like resource intensive. I think they just overshot, which sucks. But again, don't get mad. Don't yell at folks online.
No. Yeah. I'm frustrated, but I'm not going to take it out anyway.
Yeah. Leave people alone on Twitter, just to anybody watching. Just never target a game developer. You can yell at this game studio's handle if you want, but there's still someone reading that on the other side. But yeah, it really stinks because City Skylines rocks. I don't have anywhere near as many hours as Mark has into it, but I played it a bunch with my kids. When it first came out, it was everything we wanted SimCity 2 be and wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was kind of bummed seeing this as well. But I'm actually not mad about it. I don't mind it because this year's been so stocked with games to begin with. I have like no time to play anything. So if I got to wait 6 months to a year for them to figure this out, that's just kind of better for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I definitely fall in that same camp as well. And honestly, I can understand that with the Cyberpunk thing as well. I mean, there's even people here in the chat that are like, oh yeah, I'm waiting to go play back to Cyberpunk to let the bugs fix out. But yeah, so I guess there's a couple things here. Like, should we be okay with the fact that developers are allowed to put out games that are broken and then just assume that they'll fix it in 6 months?
Don't buy it unless it's fixed.
Mm-hmm.
You should be okay with this. The same as anything. Car manufacturers can put out cars that run wonky as heck, but then nobody will buy them. Don't buy them.
Vote with your wallet, essentially. Yeah, I'm definitely.
Well, we also you run into the hype cycle too. I mean, God, who develops the Grand Theft Auto games? Rockstar.
Rockstar.
I mean, I mean, Rockstar. You can criticize GTA 5 all you want for existing on that small little island, but it was a fairly smooth, polished game. Red Dead Redemption 2. It was my pandemic lifesaver. I mean, that was just a beautiful game, serene, an incredible amount of depth. And they took years to develop it, but they also didn't necessarily say when they started it and when it was going to. I mean, you don't have that ongoing hype cycle. If you have updates and so forth and you engage with fans, the problem with that is that people start expecting you to deliver on your commitments. When is it? When is it? When is it? If you simply say, we're developing blah, 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 and they don't talk about it for 7 years, sure, people want to know where it is. People may start to say it's vaporware or it's hype, but when it comes out, you can be sure that you're happy with it. The exception to that, of course, is, since you're wearing a Valve costume, I mean, where is Half-Life 3,
No, it's not coming. It's not coming.
It's not coming out, right? I mean, it could, but I would expect it to be really good if it ever does.
Well, yeah, no. So, okay, let's walk through a couple different scenarios. I feel like either the developers, I mean, obviously, if they're coming out before the game is releasing and trying to get ahead of the fact that performance isn't there right now, they're aware of it, right? They didn't try to at least be like, oh no, everything's cool here. Everything's cool. Just buy it. It's fine. So they did try to get ahead of it because they obviously knew that there was performance problems. So either they felt it was okay to release a bad game and be like, we'll just fix it later, right?
Well, I wouldn't say bad game. I'd say poorly optimized game.
Or just, having struggle to run, not a bad game. Yeah, I haven't played it. Or on the flip side, I mean, the another possible thing they could have run into is the actual developers could have been like, oh crap, it's not in the state that we want. We need more time. And the publisher was like, no, we just need to put it out. You just fix it later. No matter what, we need to put it out. So I mean, unless we know, which we don't know. And I don't think they're going to come out and say, regardless, those are two completely different scenarios, I feel like, and two different ways to get angry if you want to get angry, which I don't think you should. But, with the lack of information, we just don't know.
Well, I mean, Cities Skylines came out in 2013, 2015. It's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And developing a whole new game, even if it's built on the thing, takes real money, especially when you're paying developers and artists and stuff like that. They may have just reached the point where it's like, hey man, as popular as Cities Skylines is, people buy it for $5 to $10 on sales these days. We need some money in the bank.
And
right?
Skylines wasn't that great when it first came out. I mean, there was a lot of features that you don't have, that they didn't have. I mean, one lane, you couldn't reverse the roads. I don't think they had tunnels, stuff like that. I mean, things that we take for granted now. So, I am willing to give them some slack, but you kind of expect, I don't know.
Leaves a sour taste.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I trust them a lot more. I trust Colossal a lot more to eventually right the ship than I do the folks behind Kerbal Space Program 2.
Oh, yeah. Well, but I mean, I think that is the other thing. And you stated before, hey, if you didn't pre-order, you didn't already invest in it, then just wait. You probably have plenty of other games. Do you really need to waste your time and effort just to get angry? Just wait, or go back, play City Skylines 1, or oh hey, you know what? If it is maybe you have access to Game Pass, maybe just dabble in it there and then buy it later. I don't know that I don't know. Yeah, I personally, I mean, I'm not a fan of this game or these kind of games, so I'm not going to get angry anyway. But I don't know. I just feel like there's already so many games out there. Regardless of how excited I am about something, even if it comes out and it's just oh, okay, well, whatever. I got plenty of other games to play.
It would be a different story in a world without Game Pass or Epic's free games or things like that, because we just have so many choices. But if I had to shell out $50 or $60 and that was my game for 3 months because that was my budget, yeah, I would be a lot more upset.
Yeah. Well,
all I know is that I want to benchmark Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite with this game now.
Oh boy.
Two frames or something.
Yeah, it'll come with a paper bag, brown paper bag. So on the opposite side of the coin is Alan Wake 2. There's been a lot of people angry about Alan Wake 2. A lot of people hopping on their pony, just riding off into the sunset, saying, I can't believe these devs. They're insulting me. They're not letting me play it on my older hardware, or even the newest hardware is only able to get X amount of performance. How dare they? Brad? What's going on? Are the developers so lazy that they just didn't bother optimizing it? Or are they just in the pocket of big NVIDIA and they're just trying to push NVIDIA GPUs? Like, what the hell's going on here, Brad?
Well, I mean, NVIDIA was on that podcast we did with the lead graphics programmer.
It's true.
Remedy the other day. So maybe they are. Maybe we are. Like, we're here in disguise. So
yeah. I don't know.
No, we are not. We are not, to be clear. But this is the total opposite of City Skylines. City Skylines, I think, is just they were over ambitious for the team size that they had and the kind of game that they had. In this case, people are getting mad, and honestly, I think it's kind of ridiculous because this is pushing every possible graphics technology to the cutting edge that we have available right now, and I think that's great. I love to see games that push the envelope. If you go back and watch the interview that we did with the folks from Remedy, they made a really great point where, we made this to run on the consoles too. So yes, if you want to have path tracing, if you want to have ray reconstruction, if you want to have generated frames, if you want to have all this stuff, you can on the PC, but the game still runs good on more modest hardware, or runs decent on more modest hardware, and even the low settings look pretty good. Like, even the low settings do look pretty good.
Well, so yes, we have an interview that we did last week. Go back and watch it. I think, at least for me, I have never talked to the developers at Remedy before. I mean, I rarely talk to developers, to say the truth. So like it was kind of fun to interview them, and even though I don't really know anything about it, like even the simple questions I was able to ask, I got kind of a feel. And one of the things they talked about. We talked about app optimization. We talked about, how they determine minimum spec and, running on older hardware, and take it with a grain of salt. You don't need to believe them. But the way that they answered it to me was like, oh, well, we just didn't think about that. We built the game we wanted to build and then figured it out later, to be like, oh, okay, well, what can we get it to run on? In an acceptable fashion. And obviously there could have been all the time and money in the world to get it to run, even better on even lower end hardware. But for me personally, that's awesome. Like, build the game you want to build, be allowed to push the bleeding edge. There's not that many developers out there who focus on the PC anymore. Like, who are just like, hey, you know what? We're going to take advantage of the PC and we're going to push the bleeding edge of it. Like, I would say celebrate that. Don't get angry. Like, yeah, maybe that sucks that you're excited about it and you want to play it and you're not going to be able to get good performance on what you have. But I mean, the same kind of thing happened with Crysis, right? Where like back in the day, that was like, oh man, I can't believe my PC can't run Crysis. I can't wait to upgrade it, and maybe now I can run Crysis. It was exciting back then, but now it's like, no, man, now you're making me upgrade my PC just to play this game? How dare you? Like, it feels like a weird, like, wait, I don't know.
I think what they said applies to City Skylines as well, like you were saying. Like, we got it running. It runs on consoles. It runs pretty good. Low looks pretty good. We could spend more time making it run even better on lower, but we're not made of infinite money. We're small. Like, Remedy is a fairly medium-sized developer, I would say. Like, a larger independent developer. So, it does take time and money. Well,
yeah, and so I mean,
I've seen people getting mad because it was originally coming out that it can't run on like the 5700 and 10 series, because they don't have support for mesh shaders. This is the first game ever to fully support mesh shaders. It turns out they can. They just run terribly.
I mean, it's kind of like ray tracing on 10 series. You can, but it's not going to run
exactly
well.
Right. But you got to remember, these DirectX 12 Ultimate compatible GPUs, they're like 6, 7, 8 years old now. Like, to me, it's reasonable to. This is again the first game. To me, it's reasonable to build a game around a technology that's been out for 7 years and is in fact built into the new consoles right now. So to me, people complaining about it won't run on my older GPU, like the 5700 specifically, I would probably get more irritated at AMD than I would get mad at Remedy, because they should have built in those DirectX 12 Ultimate features that NVIDIA did, but AMD didn't in that same generation.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of the outrage pony here. Like I feel like oh wow, this is awesome. Let them make the game they want to. Let them make the game they want to make. And if it's pushing bleeding edge hardware, that means it's something that we can continue to revisit from years now and be like, oh man, look at this. This is crazy. This is still using all the bleeding edge stuff. And I mean, who knows? You know, like a lot of people throw around the term optimization, like, oh, they should have optimized it better. They should have done this. They should have done that. I don't know anything about development. You know, I mean, taking them at their word, they were like, okay, we just didn't have enough time and resources, and maybe they'll do some more post-launch. But at the same time, like, okay, this is one game, and I'm okay with one game wanting to just be the bleeding edge kind of scenario there, to be like, man, this is what can really happen on the PC. Maybe here's another way to think about it. There's not that many games anymore that you can run on your PC if you have high-end hardware, that you can look at consoles and be like, look, I'm so much better than you, right? And I don't know if Gordon's still here in the chat, but I feel like he would probably feel the same way of like, hey, don't we want more games that we can rub in the nose of console gamers? Isn't that?
Well, I think the one thing that I took away from the Alan Wake thing was the fact that so if you're talking about the leap from one city builder, excuse me, from one city builder generation to the other, I still think of them as essentially the same game. Whereas I know there's a little bit more complexity, some of the back end modeling is different and so forth. But I was a little bit, I think people were shocked by the fact that, you know, City Skylines, the City Skylines 2 is essentially a city building game, and that's not that big of a leap in terms of conceptual gaming. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different with Alan Wake, only because, first of all, I was just recalling the fact that I think I got about a third of the way through it, and then I hit a wall. I think I couldn't get past something, or I stopped.
The first one or the second one?
The first one. I have to, yeah. But the thing that always struck me with Alan Wake is the fact that the first game was designed before ray tracing, before a lot of these lighting elements were talked about. I mean, Alan Wake is essentially a game about light. I mean, you know, that's, you're shining a flashlight on things and so forth. And so is Alan Wake 2, as my understanding. I haven't played it. I have a review code that I haven't actually exercised yet. And now, I mean, we are dealing with ray tracing. We're dealing with, you know, lighting effects. I mean, these are all computationally intense. Yeah, these are all computationally intensive effects. So it is reasonable to me to expect a game that is essentially, where lighting is essentially a fundamental mechanic of the game, to require a high-end graphics card to enable all those effects. I mean, that's what it should be. I mean, we're shining light sources around and so forth. So I guess when I saw the complaints about, you know, Alan Wake 2, I was just like, well, I mean, that's what you kind of signed up for with this game. It will be a little bit different with something else.
I mean, not to mention the other end of it is that for me, which I have played about, I think about maybe 4 hours now. Like, I'm still fairly early in, but I feel like for me, like, I don't need, like, this isn't a Twitch shooter. This isn't, you know, like, oh, I need to get online and get more frames wins games, whatever. Like, this is a story experience kind of thing. So I'm okay with 60. I'm okay with 40. I know that's controversial, but, you know, 40 FPS. I don't know. Maybe I play a lot on handheld, so like 40 FPS is like, oh, okay, I'm totally down with that. Even 30 FPS, like, I know there's people, oh my god, don't even do that. But you know, like, it's like, it's not in this scenario, in this kind of game. Like, I don't think this needs to be like, you need to expect 120 frames per second, or you just can't play this.
For me, it's 40. 30 is a little bit too low for me, but 40 I can be happy with.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's kind of the same deal as City Skylines. Like, kind of, not really, because again, these are two very different things. But City Skylines fans have been waiting for this game for a decade. Alan Wake fans have been waiting for Alan Wake 2 for 13 years at this point. So I think part of it is a lot of the people who played the original and loved it and couldn't wait to play this are like, man, I just can't play that now.
I mean, I get it. And I totally get that. I totally understand that. But also, would you rather have the developer not make the game they wanted to make? Because if you're taking it at face value and they're saying that, hey, when we sat down to make this game, we just made the game we wanted to make, and then we figured out like, okay, well, here's the requirements to run it. Would you rather have them not sat down and done that and said, oh, you know what, we want to do this forward-looking stuff, but we need to tamper it back. Like I'm okay with letting them be like, nah, just go for it. Make the game.
Depends on the developer. Depends on the developer. I mean, if it's a developer you believe in, let them exercise that creative vision.
Well, I mean, and Remedy has been always like one of those people to push the bleeding edge. And once again, they have been one of those developers, one of the last developers that really prioritize the PC, and like, I'm like, hell yeah. Like we need more of that. We need more people pushing the boundaries of PC. So like, that's what I don't appreciate.
I mean, if it's the new Madden, who cares? But with Remedy, I mean, if it's an artistic vision behind it, sure, I'm happy with it.
Oh, here we go. Gordon is still here. Hi, Gordon. Why do game developers still put consoles first instead of PC gaming if PC gaming is the alpha of gaming? Right? Like that's what you're saying. You're saying that they wish they put the console first, and here they didn't. Like, yes, they made sure it ran. I haven't played on console side. I don't know how it is on console, but like that, I don't care. Like,
No, it's kind of the wrong way to look at it. Modern consoles, if your PC can't run this, then it's not matching what's in the modern consoles because it needs an SSD. This game because the consoles have it. It needs mesh shaders because they're based off RDNA 2, which has mesh shading support. It offers these incredible lighting effects and stuff like that because modern consoles do that. So, I don't know. One, there's a lot more consoles out there than gaming PCs. That's the reason they always do that. But two, yes, it really does stink if the 1080 that you've had forever throughout all these Bitcoin mining booms and busts and weirdness over the last decade is still what you're running. That stinks. I hear that you can't play it or you can't play it well. But I mean, at some point, it's like, hey, you are running a 7-8-year-old graphics card.
I run games depending upon the interface at this point in time. I mean, I use consoles I would like for the frame rate consistency. And I don't necessarily, I grew up mouse and keyboard in terms of first-person shooter, but I don't play a whole lot of first-person shooters anymore. I'm not sure why. And I like, and then the PC is unparalleled for, RTS, I mean, you just can't do it in a console. And I'm a little bit in an RTS, I'm a little bit more lenient in terms of frame rate. So I don't know. I mean, I will probably eventually play Alan Wake 2. I have a PC code, but, they sent me a code for Lords of the Fallen for whatever reason, and they said, if you want a console code, go ahead and get it in a console. And I was just like, I played Elden Ring on console. If I'm going to be playing a Souls-like, maybe I should be playing on a console. It seems like it's a better experience. So I kind of was like, all right, well, I'm not going to review it, and I don't really care if you send it to me anyways. But if you're going to send me a code, just send it to me on console because that's where I'll play it. So
and there's also chatter about upscaling, and like I'm not somebody who snobs about upscaling either. Like I think Brad, we're in the same camp where it's like even if I do have a powerful hardware, I still always turn on like DLSS or FSR like at the quality setting because I mean the what you gain from it is in my mind worth the trade-off of like a slight visual hit. So like I don't think that, and honestly, so here's another part of it, and I've talked about this here as well. Like the whole DLSS frame gen stuff has been weird for me. I haven't played a ton of it, but when I have used it, it just has not felt right. And like I understand it's you're seeing more frames and you're not getting the latency, the same latency feeling of it, and I totally get that. And it has been like just kind of a weird thing to feel and wrap your head around. But actually, I have been using it in this, and I don't have that same disconnect because the game is more slower paced and methodical. So like this is the first time that I have actually not really noticed that frame gen is on. Like it doesn't feel that different. Like, and I still think, if it's a Twitch shooter or something like that's still a different story. But for here, frame gen actually hasn't been bothering me. So.
Yep. Yeah, I could definitely. It depends on the gameplay style, right? Like, is it the ones that you would feel comfortable playing 30 frames a second, are probably the ones where frame gen doesn't matter as much. So that totally makes sense that this game it does. I forgot what the first part of that was. I was going to respond to it, but my mind just totally blanked. I'm just a dumb ogre. What did you say before that?
Frame gen? I don't know. Before the frame gen thing?
Yeah.
Or upscaling. We were talking about upscaling.
Upscaling. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. One, like Adam said, I'm one to always throw on, if a game supports it, DLSS quality mode or FSR quality mode. Check that out. I find it sometimes looks better in some aspects. It generally doesn't look worse, and you can gain a little bit of extra performance. So typically I do that just in my personal gaming. But I think a big part of the controversy here is those minimum specs that they put out, or the recommended specs, because it made everybody think you have to be running DLSS, you have to be running FSR, and you definitely should if you're struggling with frame rates on lower end or slightly older hardware. Like if you're running a 2060 or something, I would think you would definitely want to have DLSS on. But go look at Hub's roundup of testing of this. Go look at the other performance testing that you see out there. You don't actually have to have FSR or DLSS on to get 30 plus frames per second, depending on what hardware you're gaming on, right? So give it a shot without it. I think the dude that we had, Thomas, the guy that we were talking to in the interview, he put out on Twitter shortly after the game launched that that's just like the way Finnish people operate, like undersell and overdeliver. So they're like, these are really what we recommend, but it's not really like the baseline minimum. So people were freaking out over those. It's not quite as bad as that chart made it seem.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like seeing all these people get angry, I'm just like sitting here like, wait, what? Like I don't get it.
You're not an outrage pony. You're a calm pony.
I'm a calm pony, or maybe I'm just an out of touch pony. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just like love Remedy too much, and they can do no wrong in my eyes. I don't know. Maybe it's a mixture of all of it. But yeah, I mean, regardless, I have been enjoying the game. I do appreciate it, and I still look forward to they're talking about a Max Payne remakes or whatever. So I mean. Yeah,
this is something, and this ties into something I've said for a while. BPS Customs, like, sadly rip his channel, but Brian,
he actually did have a new video last week.
Oh,
yeah, he sprinkled a little one in. Yeah,
he had a video last year that I thought was really good. It's something I've been saying for years. Turn off your frame rate counter. Like, if you're worried about the performance, turn it off. Just see how it feels. Because a game like this,
I say it's hard.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I try to do unless I start to notice issues. Because if you're staring at that number in the corner and it says 43 frames per second, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't 60 frames per second. But this style of game, something like City Skylines, like, turn off that frame rate counter, play it. If it doesn't feel good to you, then you turn the frame rate counter on and start playing with settings. Like, I think you'll find that you can play this game at lower frame rates than what we are all hoping to hit 60 frames per second. But there's games like this don't have to be 60 frames per second. Some people, yes, their eyes freak out, but the vast majority of people, folks, I think, are just fine playing at less than that.
Yeah.
Do you guys turn on frame rate counters like instantly when you guys start a new game, or you guys like say, hey, you know what, let me enjoy the intro and all that first, and before I go through the specs and whatnot?
It's part of the Steam overlay for me, so it's always on.
I use Afterburner, and yeah, it's always on.
Yeah.
I have a hard time turning.
Mine's the opposite. I purposefully keep them all off.
I want to get there. I want to get there. Yeah, I think it's also because I play a lot of games on handheld, and so on the handheld, I'm usually like, okay, like I'm going in being like, okay, I know I need to tweak it going in, so like sometimes I can turn it off when I'm like, okay, this is acceptable, I'll turn it off, and only really bring it back up if I really need to. But
I'll say that Adam got to me on that, just turning on frame rate counter and just
sorry,
looking
I'm
at
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry.
Because I was playing the new Like a Dragon Ishin, and then I was because they always have like beautiful intros and whatnot, and then I'm just like, I turned on Afterburner as well. I'm like, oh wait, no, the corner of it. I'm just looking at it now. I was like, dang it, Adam.
I know.
Why?
I'm sorry. It's a blessing and a curse. Blessing and a curse. Anyway, you know what else is a blessing and a curse? Q&A.
Q&A.
I'm just kidding. If you have a question, get them in the chat right now at PC World, please. That's kind of the easiest way for us to see it. If you're watching or listening to this later, there's a link in the description to Discord, which you have a channel over there for questions that you can pop in at any time, and hopefully I'll get to it on the show. I do have a super chat that I want to get to from friend of the show Coffee. Gave us $2.79 Canadian.
Thank you
So much. And asks, is Apple playing the long game in regards to gaming?
Good question.
Do you think they'll ever get to a point? I mean, like maybe this is just such a long game that in 10 years from now, they've like quietly.
I threw a little shade because of the fact that in their press release they highlighted Myst as the game that was the. I mean, they literally did.
Was it the remake Myst or the original?
Well, that must. I mean, I'm sure it was the remake. I mean, I was just kind of like, oh, look, it's Myst. I mean, from 30 years ago or something like that. So I mean, yeah, I think it was the UA or the engine. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the remake, but still, I mean, it was Myst that they were highlighting. So
they're like, look, we can play Myst.
Yeah, exactly.
What's next? Duke Nukem 3D. Check it out. We have Duke Nukem 3D.
I mean, we'll drop it in the. I'll spectate the Macworld Slack chats and so forth, and the people over there aren't gaming on their Macs. I mean, they're essentially gaming on their PCs or a console. The Macs are Macs for productivity purposes and creativity and so forth. So yeah, I don't know if there's a long game there. I mean, from my standpoint, I never have never associated gaming with Macs, and I don't think that's and I wouldn't for years to come unless they made some sort of a concerted push. I mean, it's just they can show the flag, but I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I think if you get any gaming benefits out of a Mac, it's because they are creativity things. So they're trying to build these more and more powerful GPUs for creative purposes specifically.
Yeah, game creation maybe.
Yeah, I think they consider actual gaming like, a side bonus effect of that. They obviously haven't put that much work into enticing developers to make Mac games. So I don't think it's a long-term focus. I think if you can game on it, it's because they're looking for creativity.
I see it as like an added bonus. Like, hey, if you need a Mac for Mac things, then awesome. And, maybe just a little added bonus that you can play some games here and there. Oh, okay, cool. I wasn't expecting it, but glad to have it if I could. All right. We'll get to some questions over here on Discord. CosMC.
I think it's hilarious that Apple refuses to work with NVIDIA, but the best gaming option for Macs is NVIDIA's GeForce Now.
Hey, but there we go. We got it in there. Drink. So CosMC asks a question that we kind of already answered, but Alan Wake is largely a survival horror game with the majority looking at the investigation and walking sim. Does it really need to run above 30 FPS? And once again, I say no. 40 or bust. That's fine.
Don't get me wrong. I want 60 or higher if I can, but I can deal with 40.
Okay, here's another Alan Wake one. Star Screamus asks, friend of the show, Star Screamus asks, will Alan Wake 2 be the next Crysis / GTA 5, living in the reviewer benchmarks for 5 to 10 or more years?
There's a very good chance. That's kind of the question I meant to ask them, but I forgot to when we were talking to the Remedies guys. Like, did you guys set out to make this the new Crysis? Because it certainly freaking seems like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is one of the better ways to look at it. Of like, hey, you know what? This is going to be a showpiece for a while to come. And honestly, in a lot of respects, that's what Cyberpunk has been too. It's like they apart from the bugs and updating it and all that kind of stuff of the game itself, they've been instituting more features in there, the path tracing and DLSS 3.5 and frame generation, all that kind of fun stuff and it makes it still relevant to pop in and be like, I wonder how this piece of hardware runs on that. I like that, just playing around. So
yeah, me too. I do got to say, NVIDIA's business relations team is way better at identifying gaming partners than it feels like the Radeon team does. Radeon teams are like Guardians of the no, it wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy, that was NVIDIA, but like Forspoken and stuff like that. Whereas, Cyberpunk is a really great example for ray tracing, and it's a great game from a PC first company. Same deal with Alan Wake 2. And I think NVIDIA just has a knack for finding the games that are really good showpieces for what it does compared to Radeon.
Is that because they throw money at the problem?
It probably doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. But
right. Well, I mean, I will say, out of the box, or even in the reviewers code pre-release, I went in the options menu, both DLSS and FSR 2.0. So, if they took money, it didn't stop them from implementing an AMD feature. So, let's see. Here's another one. Okay, this is a joke from CosMC. A friend of the show asks, "What's the max allowable laziness for game developers?" That's a joke. No. Given a better question. Given the stagnation of game price due to increased popularity of games and increasing volume of sales, are we finally willing to accept that the price of games need to increase to compensate for the increasing development cost and requested optimization? They add pay devs well enough that they won't be lazy. I don't know about that last part, but I mean, that's another thing a lot of people have been talking about is like, oh man, game prices have been going up and up and up over the last years, and I'm like, wait, I bought like an $80 game on the Super Nintendo, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the model's changed. I mean, you can buy. I don't know. Take Remedy for example. I mean, I'm Control, right? Was 2 DLCs. And they were both. I mean, I'm actually still sort of stuck in the second one. I haven't finished that one yet. But I mean, solid stuff, right? But City Skylines, there's another model for you. City Skylines, the base game is at a fixed price, tends to come over in time, but DLC. I mean, there's like for the first game, there's like what 20. The Total War series is another one, right? Where you come out with 3 kingdoms, and there's I don't know, you get an additional faction, you get additional scenario. Those guys just make money because they keep on adding on to it. So you kind of have to look at the games, I guess, to just sort of just decide. I mean, if a company is going to come out and not plan DLC, something like a $70, opening price might be a little bit more reasonable. But I think if you're going to be asking people to pay $20 every few months to sort of get that additional content, then your initial price needs to be lower as well. But again, I mean, Epic, all these free games, Game Pass that throws at you, that does offset it too. I mean, I still use, and I've have stories on the site, I use Microsoft Rewards to essentially pay for it. And I've still got, it's still kind of creeping down, but I still have additional, 2 years on it. And that benefits us. My kids have become accustomed to it. They just try whatever they want and they download it and stop playing it if they don't want it. And, I think that, dev costs game costs have come up, but we do have some offsetting, mechanisms, for lack of a better word, and I think it doesn't feel overbearing to me right now, but I certainly could see where some people would.
I get where this person's coming from. They're saying, shouldn't they be more? I feel like we've actually reached a pretty good equilibrium, I feel like, in the gaming industry. Like, you can pick up games like Overwatch for $40 with the expectation that, or Overwatch 2, I guess, is free. Overwatch 1 was $40, but the expectation is you'd buy loot boxes and stuff like that. That's how they funded the continued development. The smaller, more PC-centric companies, especially like Mark was mentioning, like all the Paradox games like Stellaris and Crusader Kings, they pump out a bunch of little DLC things. You get a good, fully stocked game to begin with. I don't feel like they shortchange you in any way, and then they'll put out extra stuff to get stuff, which I think is also fine. The $70 games, the blockbusters, the AAA games are basically $70, and I think it's gonna have a hard time going up more than that, because I get that inflation wise, like game prices have stagnated, but at the end of the day, like $70 is a lot of freaking money, man. Like I'm not as, I'm not struggling as much as when I used to unload trucks for a living, but I still got kids to feed. I got to put gas in my car. $70 is a lot. And if you pump that up any higher, like who's really going to take a random shot on an $80 game? The same goes for indies. Like if I want to try an indie out, I'll throw 15 or $20 on it. But if you push that up to 30 to $40, it gets a little more iffy. I'm like, do I really want to spend $40 to try out this game? And honestly, for the AAA games, it's getting harder for the mid-tier developers and the smaller developers at times. But the AAA games put out by the Microsofts and Activisions and EAs of the world, those companies are making billions of dollars in profit quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. It's not a question of should we be paying more to pay them more. It's a question of can the corporate structure, shave a little bit off the top to make sure their employees have a good work-life balance. That's the way I feel about it. Because if you bump the prices up too much more, you're going to sell a lot less games.
I mean, but that's economy, or right? Like if you're pushing too far, people won't buy it, then you're going to have to adjust. So like, I mean, I still think for me, it's like put your money where your mouth is. Yeah. If you feel like it's too much, then don't buy it. But it seems like, it's at least a sustainable thing here. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but we do have, I mean, Game Pass is a damn good deal. Like, I mean, if you're looking at it, like regardless of like whatever, like, deals that you can get from like Elena's article, trying to get, stack on some stuff, like there's definitely good things there. And yeah, I think that's the other part of it, right? Is that like people feel like, okay, well they're asking too much for this. Okay, well how much is going to the developer? How much is going to the publisher? That can get reworked, rethought, so that people are getting paid fair wages. Like I'm all for the developers getting a fair wage and like, making sure that's, but also at the same time, I mean, it's a damn business. So publishers need to get their cut too to continue to be around. Yeah. So like, yeah, where is that line? I think it changes game to game as well.
For some people, like I understand, like a lot of people like to play the latest and greatest, right? But for people who don't and just like to wait, so just like me, I like to just wait for. I don't buy the game in full, right? Like $60-$70. I like to wait a little bit, like not maybe till Black Friday, but when it's like a little on sale, maybe like 40. And if it hits Black Friday, $30, and I've been waiting for it, then good. You make your make the worth the wait.
And by that time, there's probably been some patches and updates.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's definitely different ways to slice it. I don't feel like there's an overall general like things suck. Like I do feel like there are instances where it's just like, oh my god, I got a great deal on this. So that's awesome. So yeah. I don't know. I don't see it as like a black and white kind of thing, but yeah. A couple more questions and we'll get out of here. Friend of the show, Dark Helmet, has a good one. On October 10th, Game Ready Driver 537.58 was released with support for Forza Motorsport. On the same day, Studio Driver 537.58 was also released. Since NVIDIA doesn't talk about game support in their documentation for studio drivers, would the studio driver have the same support for Forza Motorsport, or would that be added in the November release? Do you have an answer to this one? Or?
I don't have an answer for this specific case, but I have asked about that exact scenario when they first rolled out studio drivers. Mm-hmm. And they said that, sometimes you'll get some, you won't get day zero support in a studio driver for games. They fully plan and implement everything in the studio drivers around productivity applications. And then they focus on, because drivers are big and complicated, and they focus on getting it totally all set on the G4 side. And then eventually they'll wrap it in on the studio side. So if you're doing day zero kind of gamings like that, you definitely want the game ready drivers. It won't have the game ready support on the studio side.
And I've always wanted to do that, just like blanket statement of like, like getting a group of production and games in a test suite and have the same test bench, but just change the drivers and see what changes between the two. Because I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, like it's probably not. I mean, unless it's something that comes in hot and heavy, where it's like, yeah, it's a day one kind of thing, and you're expecting some sort of good driver update to help support that. Other than those scenarios, it's probably pretty damn even.
Yeah, I would think anything that's been out for, a couple of months would be fairly equal, but they definitely do heavily balance towards productivity and gaming.
Yeah.
Then, they catch it up once everything's stable.
Yeah, because I mean, because at that point, I mean, there wouldn't be a reason to have two separate drivers. It would just be all the same thing. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes more sense. So I do wonder then, where is that line? Like, maybe we could ask NVIDIA that, like, talk to them about drivers and how they deal with it. And it's like, okay, when does the opposite happen too? When does a kind of more studio production kind of driver, like for Adobe Premiere or something, roll into the game ready drivers? Like, because people, I always see the question of like, okay, well, I do both. Which one should I just default towards, or should I always like flip and flop depending on what I'm doing? And I'm like, you probably don't want to flip and flop. Just stick with one driver. But
the one thing that stuck with me as you were mentioning this is not graphics drivers, but one of the people that were the city's getting back to the City Skylines thing. Mm-hmm. When there was actually a performance patch released, apparently it hit Steam a couple of days, or at least a few days before it hit like Game Pass, Xbox, distribution, which was interesting because I always assumed they were kind of timed for the same release, but apparently not in that case. Well, so.
Yeah, on Steam, the devs have full control over everything, so they can push it. Like, they can wrap it up right now and go, YOLO, and throw it. But they have to go through the Xbox channels on the Xbox side.
I'm gonna risk a 3 from all the way out here. YOLO. Yeah.
Kids say Kobe now, don't they?
Kobe. Do they?
I don't know. I think they did that 7 years ago or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it still happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Couple more super chats here that I forgot to list. Sid, friend of the show, Sid Lives, gave us $1.99. Thank you so much.
Thank
Said
you.
Dr. Adam, rocking the white lab coat and tie.
Dr. Adam.
Dr. Adam. Was
Where'd you
Gordon
get that,
Freeman
by the way?
doctor?
Where'd you get that white lab coat?
I
Costume store?
covered it up. No, PC World here, baby. PC World. This
Okay,
is from
that
the
makes sense.
holdover
sense.
from the lab itself.
Okay, that makes sense.
But no, I work for Black Mesa, the research
Got it.
facility. And then anyway, thank you. Friend of the show, Skeet Sayer, earlier gave us a $5 Canadian super chat. Thank you so much. Always appreciated. Said, isn't BG3 Baldur's Gate 3? Jesus Christ! Isn't Baldur's Gate 3 an example of how to release a game? Yes,
Absolutely. But it was an early access for what, 2 years? I mean,
yeah.
Ash, I think, said that she'd played it like 5 times before it even hit like general release. I mean,
Yeah, so I mean, yes, that's an awesome case, and it worked out good for them. But also, games are so different. I don't think we can just be like, hey, be like Baldur's Gate 3. Oh, okay.
No, it's impossible. Yeah.
No, so like, I mean, I get it. In a perfect scenario, wouldn't that be awesome? That would be awesome. But also, I think that's unrealistic. Like, come on. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah. And that was Baldur's Gate 3. They had Larian, who's the best, basically, at those kinds of RPGs right now, developing it. It had all kinds of exclusivity deals. They were throwing the money that they had from all this into getting it right. Wizards of the Coast, I'm sure they got a big chunk of money from, you remember this is one of the first Stadia deals. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to Stadia, even though
really?
Stadia shut down. I bet you Google threw tons of money at them. So they had the luxury of time to be able to nail it. So early access helps. Yes, it is the perfect example of how to launch a game, but that is just a testament to how rare and awesome it is.
Yeah, and don't get on Twitter and just yell at every other dev and be like, why aren't you like Baldur's Gate? Like, come on. Like, yeah, it's not that easy. All right, last one, we'll get out of here. Friend of the show, Starscreamus asks, what's your favorite film to watch on Halloween?
Ooh.
Does anyone have like an actual like, okay, on Halloween we watch this? Mark?
So that kind of gets into, I don't have a Halloween film. I mean, I think it gets into some of the things you were talking about maybe last week, was this like favorite scary film. And for me, I would probably nominate, I Honestly, I keep coming back to The Conjuring, the original Conjuring. I just really like the way they handle it.
Classic.
You know, one of the things one of the things I remember doing in college was I wrote a paper on Henry James' A Whistle and I'll Call to You, My Lad, which is a nice little ghost short story. And they actually have it's kind of like this ghost that kind of comes from elsewhere, so it's xenophobic, but it's basically sort of it materializes in a sheet, but not when you think of a traditional sheet. There's a scene in The Conjuring where she's doing her laundry and the kind of ghost appears in the sheet that's being hung up on the laundry, and I just thought that wow, that was like a callback to that movie. And then there's the doll, and I just thought, man, that was handled so well. I really enjoyed it. I even enjoyed the second one too. But yeah, I'd say The Conjuring is probably the one that I would the rest of the family won't watch it, obviously. But I do like the scary movies. I don't like the gore movies. I don't like the torture porn. But something that's generally chilling and haunting is right up my alley, and The Conjuring kind of fills that for me. So
it's a good, more cerebral kind of thing than
it is,
a jump
yeah.
scare.
And then
you
got the Flanagan. Was it Flanagan?
Mike
guy that does that Follow the House of
Flanagan.
Usher, the talkie stuff. So I know Brad has to go. So go ahead, Brad.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, Flanagan. I actually just wrapped up the Midnight Club series he did with my 13-year-old last night.
I heard that wasn't as good.
She loved it. It's perfect. Really? It's not as good as his other stuff. It was made more for like teens, but it was upper end of teens. But I spend all month watching horror movies. I've watched a bunch of Ash vs. Evil Dead. I've watched Follow the House of Usher. I've watched Midnight Club. I've watched Haunting of Bly Manor. I've watched a bunch of random movies. I spend all of October watching movies. But on Halloween itself, me and the kids, after we go trick-or-treating, we come back home. Everyone's trading candy and stuff. We always watch Nightmare Before Christmas.
There you go.
Not even gonna get it. It's not a Halloween movie. I don't know why you're watching that.
We had an argument about that just on live yesterday, last week, about whether The Nightmare Before Christmas, is it a Halloween film or is it a Christmas film?
It is. Brad? It is appropriate from any time from September through December.
There you
go. Willis, anything you have a tradition?
Not really a tradition. Kind of like Mark. I don't watch any, or at least I don't watch a lot of horror films myself. But Nightmare Before Christmas would be one that I would exactly right. Hey, it's Halloween. Maybe we should just put on some family-friendly Halloween themed, movies, and it's either that or actually Spirited Away right here with Mr. No Face. And it's in some ways it's not Halloween themed, but it's about monsters. It's a fantasy land and all that. People are that you got monsters and people dressing up and all.
And I spend 12 months out of the year watching horror films, so I'm always constantly.
But is there a one? Is there like the one that you want to watch?
Not on Halloween. No, there's not like a traditional or something like that. I mean, that's more for like Christmas. I have like traditional I gotta watch something for Christmas. But Halloween, I mean, we're watching horror movies all the time. I will say we just started the Enfield Poltergeist documentary on Apple TV Plus. So far, it's actually pretty damn good. If you're looking for like a documentary kind of thing. Anyway, and a really good scene in the chat. There's a lot of people saying Beetlejuice, The Crow.
We just watched that in the family. Yeah, we watched that in the family too a week ago.
The Crow. Evil Dead, obviously, classic. So
Second one.
A lot of good stuff. But we need to get out of here. Because I've got some head crabs I hear scraping around. I see them looking at me. I need to go smash them with my crowbar. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Let me bring up the notes so check back next week for your fix of PC talk on the Full Nerd. If you to listen to us on the go, please subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Pocket Casts, or wherever you can point your RSS feed to. And if you are on one of those services where you can review us, please leave us a review. Every time you do, a head crab comes and eats somebody's head. No, you don't want that. Why would I want somebody to do that? Anyway, thank you, Mark Hockman, for joining us on the line.
Sure.
Always good to have you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Brad, for co-hosting this spooky edition of The Full Nerd.
For sure. Calories don't count on Halloween, so have fun, y'all.
It's math. It's just math.
Yes,
And thank you, Willis, for driving the show. Get us out of here.
Thank you. All right, I'm hungry right now, so I'm gonna go hit up a buffet with this mask on. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy and safe Halloween. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Ooh. Should have a spooky edition of the theme
Buffet.
song. Booze Day. Oh, booze? Like booze?
Buffet, not a buffet. A booze.
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Booze.